I stood in my living room at 11:47 p.m., holding my phone like it might explode, staring at the folder that had just downloaded to my desktop. 43 files, photos, texts, emails, WhatsApp conversations dating back 2 years. My hands were shaking so badly, I nearly dropped the phone. Brandon, my husband of 8 years, had no idea what I'd just found. No idea that his entire carefully constructed double life was sitting in a folder on my computer, waiting to destroy everything he'd built. But that's not where this starts. Not really. To understand how I got to that moment, you need to know who we were before. Who I thought we were. My name is Jennifer, and until about 3 weeks ago, I would have told anyone who asked that I had the kind of marriage people envied. The kind they saw on Instagram and felt a little jealous of. We'd bought our house in Oak Ridge, a nice suburb 40 minutes north of the city, 5 years ago. It's a 4-bedroom colonial with black shutters, a 2-car garage, and an HOA that charges $185 a month to keep the neighborhood looking like a magazine spread. Our mortgage was $2,100 a month on a combined household income that kept us comfortable. Not rich, but comfortable. Brandon worked in commercial real estate. He was good at it, the kind of good that meant he traveled maybe 2 weeks a month, brought home deals that made him feel important, and had business dinners that kept him out until 9 or 10 most Thursday nights. I didn't mind. I'd been doing the same thing for years in marketing before I went part-time when our daughter Emma was born. She's 6 now. Our son Tyler is 8. The kids were asleep upstairs. Emma was probably still clutching that ratty stuffed rabbit she refuses to let go of. And Tyler was definitely sprawled across his bed sideways, the way he always sleeps. Like his body doesn't understand the concept of lying straight. I could hear the ice maker humming in the kitchen. The house was quiet in that way. It gets after midnight, when you're the only one awake, and everything feels a little too still. I'd been waiting up because Brandon's flight from Atlanta was supposed to land at 10:30. He texted at 10:45, saying he'd landed and was heading to his car. Then nothing. No text when he was on the highway. No call. No, I'm 10 minutes away, like he usually did. Nothing until 11:42, when he messaged, "Staying at the Marriott downtown. Too tired to drive home. See you tomorrow afternoon. Love you." The Marriott downtown. That's what he wrote. Here's the thing about being married to someone for 8 years. You develop instincts. Not the crazy paranoid kind. The real kind. The kind that whispers when something doesn't fit. And something about that message didn't fit. Brandon hated hotels. He complained about the pillows, the air conditioning, the generic artwork on the walls. He'd rather drive home half asleep than sleep in a hotel. I'd heard him say it 100 times. I didn't respond. I just sat there in the dark living room with my coffee getting cold, and I thought about how he'd been different lately. Nothing dramatic, just smaller somehow, more distant. He'd been taking calls in the garage. He'd changed his Apple Watch password 3 months ago. He'd started going to the gym 4 times a week instead of twice. Getting in better shape, he'd said, and he'd lost maybe 15 pounds. His jawline looked sharper. He looked good, actually, better than he had in years. I told myself I was being paranoid. Brandon was a good husband. He was a good father. He brought home flowers on our anniversary. He helped with homework. He made the kids laugh. He was the kind of guy who remembered to empty the dishwasher without being asked. That kind of guy doesn't stay in hotels when he should be coming home. That kind of guy doesn't change his passwords and take mysterious calls. But that kind of guy also doesn't ignore the obvious signs, does he? I stood up, grabbed my laptop from the side table, and opened it without really thinking about what I was doing. The screen glowed in the dark room. I went to our shared Google Drive, the one where we kept family photos, tax documents, insurance information, stuff that both of us could access. Brandon had always been terrible about organizing files. There were folders within folders, documents with vague names like stuff and random, and check these out. I clicked through the usual suspects. Photos from Emma's school field trip, our property tax statement, a spreadsheet of potential vacation destinations we'd been researching for next summer. Nothing unusual. Nothing that would explain the hollow feeling spreading through my chest. Then I saw it. A folder labeled Work Files, Do Not Delete. It was buried in a subfolder called Archive, and the timestamp said it had been modified 3 weeks ago. Brandon wasn't usually this organized about anything. His work stuff was always scattered across his email and his phone. I opened it. That's when I saw the first file. A TL_trip_November_28.zip. Atlanta. He'd just gotten back from Atlanta. My finger hovered over the mouse. I knew that clicking on that file was crossing a line. I knew it. Part of me wanted to close the laptop, go upstairs, and forget I'd seen anything. Go back to the version of my life where I had a good husband and a mortgage I could manage, and a 6-year-old who still thought I was the smartest person in the world. But I'd already crossed the line the moment I felt that instinct that something was wrong. I double-clicked the file. The file unzipped instantly. 43 items spilled across my screen like someone had dumped a bucket of ice water down my spine. Photos first. That's what my brain registered. High-resolution photos of Brandon in a hotel room I didn't recognize. But not alone. A woman. Blonde, maybe mid-30s, wearing a black bra in one shot and nothing at all in another. Then more photos. Brandon's hand on her thigh at a restaurant. Brandon kissing her neck at what looked like a bar. Brandon looking at her the way he used to look at me. Before Emma was born, before the mortgage, before life became about schedules and responsibilities and making it work. I didn't realize I was standing up until my chair rolled backward and hit the wall behind me. The sound made me flinch like I'd been caught doing something wrong, which I had. I was invading my husband's privacy. I was looking at evidence of something I wasn't sure I was ready to see. But I couldn't stop. The emails came next. Years of them, going back to March of 2022. That was 2 years ago, 2 years. I did the math in my head and felt something crack open in my chest. March 2022 was when Brandon started that new commercial real estate firm, when he started traveling more, when he said he needed to focus on building something bigger. Her name was Madison Torres. The emails had subject lines like, "Missing you," and "When can I see you again?" and one that made my stomach turn. "Tell her whatever you need to. I'm patient." Patient. Like she was waiting for him to leave me. Like it was inevitable. The WhatsApp conversations were worse because they were so casual, so intimate in the way that real affairs are. Not romantic, just comfortable. They talked about work, about their day, about what they wanted to eat for dinner. She sent him memes. He sent her photos of sunsets from hotels. Once, he'd written, "Wish you were here," from Nashville, and she'd responded with a heart emoji. I scrolled through months of conversations. Then a year. Then 2 years of a completely separate relationship existing inside the marriage I thought I had. There was a video file at the bottom of the folder. I almost didn't click it. Some part of me knew that watching it would cross a line I couldn't come back from. But my hands weren't listening to my brain anymore. They moved on their own, and the video opened. It was Brandon and Madison in a car. A hotel parking garage, based on the concrete walls visible in the background. The video was shaky, like it was filmed on a phone propped against the dashboard. Madison was talking, her hand on Brandon's arm. "When are you going to do it?" she was asking. "You said you'd talk to her this month." "I know," Brandon said. His voice sounded tired. "I'm working up to it." "You've been working up to it for 6 months," Madison said, and there was an edge to her voice now. Impatience. "I can't keep doing this. I want to know if we have a future, or if I'm just wasting my time." "You're not wasting your time," Brandon said, and he leaned over and kissed her. It was tender. It was the kind of kiss that meant something. "Then tell her," Madison said. "Tell her about us. Tell her you want a divorce." The video went black. I sat there in the dark living room, my laptop screen the only light, and I couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't think past the single thought repeating in my head. Divorce. He wanted a divorce. He wanted to leave me for this woman, for Madison Torres, whoever she was. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. I jumped like I'd been shocked. It was a text from Brandon. "You up? Wanted to check on you." Check on me, like he cared. Like he wasn't lying in a hotel room. Or maybe not a hotel room at all, maybe Madison's apartment, texting his wife to make sure she wasn't suspicious while he planned to blow up our entire life. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My hands were shaking too badly to type. Instead, I did something I'd never done before. I forwarded the entire folder to my own personal email account. All 43 files, photos, emails, videos, text conversations, everything. I didn't think about why I was doing it. I just knew I needed insurance. I needed proof. The files uploaded to my email, and I logged out of the shared Google account. Then I sat in the dark and waited for the sun to come up, knowing that everything had changed and that my carefully constructed life was about to implode. The sun rose at 6:47 a.m. I know because I watched it happen, minute by minute, through the living room windows. Tyler would be up soon, wanting cereal and cartoons. Emma would wander downstairs in her pajamas, asking why Mommy looked tired. And Brandon would pull into the driveway around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, probably carrying coffee from some drive-thru, probably rehearsing whatever lie he was going to tell me about why the Marriott was so exhausting. I couldn't face any of it yet, so I did the only thing that made sense at 6:50 in the morning. I called my mother. She picked up on the second ring, which meant she was already awake, already drinking her coffee in her kitchen in Portland, 3 hours behind. "Jenny, what's wrong?" My mother could hear the end of the world in my voice before I even spoke. "Can you come stay with us for a few days?" My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else, someone smaller and younger and broken. "I think my marriage is over." There was a long silence on the other end, then, "I'm booking a flight right now. Don't do anything until I get there. Do you understand me? Don't do anything." But I'd already done everything. And by the time my mother landed at the airport that evening, Brandon would come home and discover that his entire world had been uploaded to my personal email account. He'd know I knew, and the carefully orchestrated chaos of my life would begin in earnest. I just didn't know yet how far it would go. #finalnej čast. Brandon came through the front door at 2:17 p.m. on a Tuesday, exactly as I'd predicted. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open, a glass of water I hadn't touched in front of me, and my mother standing by the counter with her arms crossed. Mom had arrived the night before, and she'd spent the last 16 hours doing what she does best, being angry on my behalf while I moved through the house like a ghost. "Hey," Brandon said, setting his overnight bag down in the foyer. He was still wearing the same clothes from the day before, and he looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with travel. "How was your morning?" I didn't answer. I just closed the laptop and looked at him. Something shifted in his face. That's when I knew he suspected. Maybe he'd realized the file was gone. Maybe Madison had noticed. Maybe some instinct older than reason was telling him that his entire world was about to collapse. "Jennifer?" He walked into the kitchen, his eyes moving from me to my mother and back again. "What's going on?" "Sit down," my mother said. Her voice was the same tone she'd used when I was 7 and had lied about breaking her favorite vase. "I don't think I—" "Sit down, Brandon." He sat. I'd never heard my mother use that voice on him before, and I watched him react to it like a man who'd just realized he was in a room with people who knew everything. "I know about Madison," I said. The words came out steady, which surprised me. I'd expected to cry when I said them, but I didn't. I just felt hollow. "I know about Atlanta. I know about the video. I know you want a divorce. I know everything." Brandon's face went white, not pale, white like all the blood had drained out of it in a single moment. "How did you—" "The shared Google Drive," I said. "You uploaded the entire folder to the shared account, the one we both have access to." "That was careless, Brandon. That was really careless." He opened his mouth, then closed it. His hands gripped the edge of the table. "I have copies," I continued. "All 43 files. On my personal email, backed up to the cloud and printed out. I also have screenshots of every email and every text message. I have the video where Madison asks you when you're going to tell me about the divorce. I have photos of you together. I have proof of every single lie you've told me for 2 years. Jennifer, I can explain. No, my mother interrupted. You can't. My daughter doesn't want your explanations. She wants a divorce attorney, and she's going to get one today. Brandon looked at me, and for a second I saw something in his face that I almost mistook for remorse. But it wasn't remorse. It was panic. The panic of a man who'd been caught and suddenly realized there were consequences. Where are the kids? He asked. With Mrs. Patterson next door, I said. Mrs. Patterson was our neighbor, the one who brought us cookies at Christmas, and whose daughter had babysitted for us a dozen times. She knew something was wrong when I'd asked if she could watch them for the afternoon, but she hadn't asked questions. They don't need to be here for this. Jennifer, please, we can work this out. Madison doesn't mean anything. It's just, don't, I said. My voice was still steady, which felt like a small miracle. Don't sit there and tell me she doesn't mean anything. You were planning to leave us. You were planning to leave our children. For 2 years you were planning that. So don't insult me by pretending this is something we can just talk through. My mother pulled out her phone. I'm calling Richard Feldman right now. He's the best divorce attorney in the state, and I've already spoken to him this morning. He's expecting your call, Jennifer. Richard Feldman. I'd looked him up at 3 in the morning while Brandon was sleeping, or supposedly sleeping, at the Marriott. He specialized in high-asset divorces and infidelity cases. His website said he'd secured an average settlement of $1.2 million for his female clients in the last 5 years. He had a 94% success rate in custody disputes. Brandon's jaw clenched. I'm not paying for a divorce attorney. You want a divorce? You can hire your own lawyer. You absolutely will, my mother said. Because if you don't, my daughter will file for every penny you own, and Richard Feldman will make sure she gets it. You have a 401k with approximately $340,000 in it. You have a commercial real estate business with equity. You have a wife who can prove you've been engaged in infidelity for 24 months, which in this state is grounds for a divorce that favors the non-infidel spouse. And you have 2 children who are going to need child support. Brandon stood up. I'm not doing this right now. Sit back down, I said. It was the first time I'd raised my voice, and it shocked both of us. He sat back down. I opened my laptop and turned the screen toward him. This is the folder. I want you to see it. I want you to understand that I'm not guessing about any of this. I have proof. He looked at the screen. I watched his face as he saw the photos, the emails, the conversation threads. I watched the moment he understood that his life was over, not because of Madison, but because he'd been stupid enough to save everything in a shared folder, like he was invincible. I'll give you until this Friday to move out, I said. You can go stay with Madison if you want, or get a hotel room. I don't care. But you're out of this house by Friday at 5 p.m., or I'm filing for a restraining order and having you removed by the police. Do you understand me? Jennifer, do you understand me? Yes, he whispered. My mother called Richard Feldman that afternoon. By the next morning, I had a consultation scheduled and a divorce petition being drawn up. By Friday, Brandon had moved into an extended stay hotel near the airport. By the end of the month, I'd filed for divorce, primary custody of the children, and a request for spousal support and child support that would amount to $3,000 a month. Brandon fought me on the custody. He tried to claim he was a devoted father, that he'd been a present parent, that the infidelity had nothing to do with his ability to care for his kids. His lawyer, some young guy who'd probably cost him $15,000 by the time they were done, argued that I should split custody 50-50. That's when Richard Feldman showed them the video. The one where Brandon was on the phone with Madison, talking about how he couldn't wait to move in with her, how the kids would adapt to a new arrangement, how he was done with his old life. The timestamp on the video was from 3 weeks ago. Madison had been recording him, probably without his knowledge. And I'd found it in that folder. Brandon's lawyer went pale. Brandon looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. My client has sole custody, Richard said. Visitation only, supervised until the children are comfortable. And if Mr. Brandon attempts to alienate them from their mother, or introduce them to Ms. Torres until the youngest child is 12, we'll be filing for emergency protective orders. Do we have an understanding? They had an understanding. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. I got the house, primary custody of the kids, 4 years of spousal support, and 18 years of child support. The amount came to just under $50,000 a year, money that went directly into a college fund for Emma and Tyler. Brandon's 401k was split 50-50, which meant I walked away with $170,000. His commercial real estate business was deemed marital property, and I received a percentage of its equity. After Richard's fees, I came out of the divorce with just over $300,000 in assets I hadn't had before. Madison disappeared from Brandon's life approximately 2 weeks after he moved into the hotel. She'd gotten what she wanted, or realized she wasn't going to get it, and moved on to someone else. I found her Instagram account by accident 6 months after the divorce was finalized. She was dating a guy from Austin, posting pictures of them at restaurants and vineyards, looking happy in that artificial way people look happy on social media. I hope she was worth it to him. I hope it was all worth it. The kids adjusted better than I expected. Emma asked questions I couldn't answer about why Daddy wasn't living with us anymore. Tyler was angry for about 3 months, and then he seemed to accept it the way kids do, by just moving on and not thinking about it too hard. Brandon picked them up every other weekend, and while that was hard to watch at first, it got easier. He tried. He really did try to be present when he was with them, and I appreciated that. I also never, ever let my children know why their father had left. As for me, I went back to full-time work. I hired a nanny to pick up the kids from school and stay with them until I got home. I started dating again about a year after the divorce was finalized, though nothing serious came of it. I didn't really want anything serious. I wanted to figure out who I was without a husband, without the weight of a marriage that had been a lie. The house is still the same. 4 bedrooms, black shutters, HOA, fees that never stop. But it feels different now. It feels like mine. 2 years after the divorce was finalized, I ran into Brandon at the grocery store. He was buying coffee and a rotisserie chicken, and he looked smaller than I remembered. Not in a physical way. He'd actually gained back some of the weight he'd lost. He just looked diminished, like something had hollowed him out from the inside. "Jennifer," he said, his voice careful, like he was approaching an animal he was afraid might bite him. "Brandon!" I didn't smile. I didn't frown. I just existed in the same space as him with complete neutrality. "I wanted to tell you. I'm sorry. For everything. For the lies. For the infidelity. For—" "I know you are," I said, "but that doesn't change anything." "The kids," Emma told me about her school project. "She's doing great in math." "Yes," I said, "she is." He nodded, and that was it. He paid for his coffee and his chicken and left. I never saw him again after that. What I learned from all of this, and what I think everyone should know, is that some betrayals are too big to come back from. Some lies are too deep, too systematic, too calculated to ever be forgiven. Brandon didn't have a moment of weakness. He didn't stumble into an affair. He built an entire second life, brick by brick, for 2 years, and then he expected me to somehow accept it or work through it. I couldn't. I wouldn't. The file transfer that destroyed everything wasn't an accident. It wasn't a moment of carelessness on Brandon's part. It was evidence, clear and undeniable, that he'd made his choice a long time ago. He'd just never expected to be caught. I kept copies of those files for 7 years. I never had to use them again, but knowing they existed, knowing that I had proof of everything, gave me a strange kind of peace. It meant I could never doubt what I'd seen. I could never gaslight myself into thinking I'd imagined the whole thing. And when Emma asked me years later why her parents got divorced, I told her the truth. Your father made choices that hurt our family. And sometimes, when someone makes those kinds of choices, you can't fix it. You can only move forward. She understood, in the way that kids understand the complicated things adults do to each other. And that was enough. I'm 42 now. Emma is 12. Tyler is 14. We're happy. We're not perfect, but we're honest with each other, and we love each other without conditions. That's more than I had before, and that's everything I needed. The last thing I did with those files was delete them. Not because I'd forgiven Brandon. I hadn't, and I never will. But because I realized that holding on to evidence of someone else's betrayal was just another way of letting them destroy me. So one afternoon, I permanently deleted them from my computer, and I felt lighter than I had in years. Turns out the best revenge isn't proving someone wrong. It's just getting to live well without them.